We went to film a couple's scene for cash. They picked me, not him, and took me upstairs alone. I mean, who wouldn't choose me? I'm Hazel, 25, and let me just say that my husband Arthur has been giving me the cold shoulder for weeks over what was honestly the smartest financial decision of our marriage. Men can be so dramatic sometimes. Look, when you're drowning in bills like we were, you'll understand why I jumped at the opportunity. 8 months into our marriage, and we were already barely making rent each month. Between my student loans and Arthur's car payment, we were living paycheck to paycheck. Arthur kept saying, "We'll get through this," while picking up all these extra shifts at work, but we both know an entry-level position like his wasn't going to dig us out of this hole anytime soon. Meanwhile, I kept seeing Lena and all my other friends posting about their weekend getaways and new furniture. I'm not saying I'm jealous, but it's pretty annoying watching everyone else live their best lives while I'm checking the couch cushions for spare change to buy groceries. Arthur just doesn't get it. I deserve better than this constant stress about money. So there I was, scrolling through Craigslist looking for side gigs, when this ad popped up. 5,000 for couples willing to film intimate scene, professional environment, one-time commitment. Between us, my first thought wasn't even about the money. It was kind of exciting, like someone would pay to see us together. But obviously, I played it off to Arthur as a purely financial decision. When I brought it up over dinner that night, you'd think I suggested we rob a bank. He practically choked on his pasta. "Absolutely not," he said. Not even considering it for a second. I mean, hello? $5,000. That's rent for months. But Arthur, with his principles and boundaries, shut it down immediately. "We're not that desperate, Hazel," he said, like he wasn't the one stressing about bills every single day. I wasn't having it. "If you made enough money, we wouldn't need to consider options like this," I told him. Low blow? Maybe. Effective? Definitely. I saw that little flinch he does when he feels inadequate. For the next week, I made sure to strategically bring it up when I knew he'd be most receptive. Right after work when he was exhausted, during commercials of his favorite show, while checking our bank account balance online. It's basically just modeling, I'd say, completely downplaying what the ad was actually for. Lena thought it was smart that I'm being resourceful. Okay, Lena actually said it sounded sketchy, but Arthur doesn't need to know that. Every time Arthur started to waver, I'd casually mention another bill that was coming due. "Oh, did you see the electricity is higher this month? And my student loan payment gets debited tomorrow." I'm not manipulating him, I'm just stating facts. Anyway, it totally worked. After a week of gentle, relentless persuasion, Arthur finally cracked. "Fine," he sighed one night, "but we do it together, and it's a one-time thing. And every penny goes to bills." I agreed immediately, before he could change his mind, though I was already thinking about this cute bag I'd been eyeing online. I mean, doesn't paying off debt count as a bill? I called the number from the ad the very next morning. The woman who answered, Natalie, was super professional. She asked a few screening questions and then scheduled us for an interview that weekend. Arthur was quiet the whole time I was on the phone, but I could tell he was listening to every word. When I hung up, he asked, "Are you sure about this?" Like 100 times. Of course I was sure. Easy money, get in and get out, problem solved. The night before our interview, Arthur was pacing around the apartment like we were about to commit a crime or something. I found it kind of cute that he was so nervous. Meanwhile, I was already planning how to split the money. Obviously most would go to bills, but surely I deserved a little something for being proactive about our financial situation, right? "It'll be fine," I told him, scrolling through Instagram while he worried. "We need this money, and it's just one afternoon of our lives." What I didn't say out loud was how the idea kind of thrilled me. Not that I was looking to be with anyone else, but the taboo of it all, the pure transaction of it, was weirdly exciting. Arthur would never understand that part, so I kept it to myself. Some things are better left unsaid, especially when you're trying to convince your straight-laced husband to do something completely out of character. Little did I know, things were about to get way more complicated than either of us expected. Saturday arrived, and I made sure we both looked good. Arthur was wearing his best button-down, and I chose an outfit that was classy, but showed off what I've got. I mean, we were basically interviewing for a modeling job, right? First impressions matter. Arthur seemed distracted on the drive over, but I kept the conversation upbeat, reminding him of all the bills we could pay off with that money. By the time we pulled into the parking lot of a surprisingly professional-looking studio, I'd managed to get him to smile at least once. "Remember," I whispered as we approached the door, "just follow my lead." Arthur nodded, but I could feel him tensing up beside me. Honestly, sometimes I wonder how he survives in the real world, being so uptight about everything. The receptionist led us into a sleek office where we met Mr. Goldberg, a well-dressed older man with silver hair and expensive cologne, and Natalie, the woman I'd spoken to on the phone. They were both super welcoming, offering us water and making small talk like this was a regular job interview. Arthur barely spoke, but I made up for his awkwardness by being extra charming. I could tell Mr. Goldberg was impressed. He kept focusing his questions on me while Natalie took notes. "So," Mr. Goldberg said after about 20 minutes of discussion about comfort levels and boundaries, "we typically film for about 2 hours. The scene would involve some light acting, followed by the more intimate portion." He spoke so professionally that even Arthur seemed to relax a little. This wasn't some sketchy operation, these were clearly industry professionals. Then came the twist. "Having met you both," Mr. Goldberg said, looking directly at me, "we'd like to propose a slight change to the arrangement." I nodded encouragingly while Arthur shifted in his seat beside me. "We'd actually like to film just with Hazel today." He turned to Arthur with an apologetic smile. "Perhaps we can work with both of you another time, but for today's particular scene, we're looking for a specific dynamic that Hazel perfectly embodies." I felt a flutter of pride. They picked me, while simultaneously feeling Arthur stiffen beside me. Before either of us could respond, Mr. Goldberg continued, "Given the change in plans, we'd like to offer $8,000 instead of the original $5,000 to compensate for the adjustment." $8,000. Just for me. I nearly gasped. Arthur's hand found mine and squeezed. Hard. I knew that squeeze. It meant absolutely not. But when Mr. Goldberg took out an envelope and began counting crisp hundreds on the desk between us, something shifted inside me. That was more money than I made in 2 months. "Hazel," Arthur whispered, his voice tight, "let's go. This isn't what we agreed on." I looked at him, then at the money, then at Mr. Goldberg's expectant face. "Can you give us a moment?" I asked. Mr. Goldberg nodded and stepped out with Natalie, leaving the cash on the desk, a silent argument for saying yes. "We are not doing this," Arthur hissed as soon as the door closed. "This is completely different from what we discussed. They just want you alone with him. That's not okay." "It's just acting," I said, though we both knew it wasn't. "And it's $3,000 more, Arthur. Think about what we could do with that money." "What I could do," Arthur said, "is keep my self-respect and my wife's faithfulness, which apparently costs more than $8,000. That stung, and I got defensive. "Oh, so now I'm unfaithful for trying to solve our money problems? You're the one who can't make enough for us to live comfortably." The moment the words left my mouth, I saw the hurt flash across Arthur's face, but I was too far gone to take them back. "This is a business transaction," I insisted. "It's a job, not an affair." "If you do this," Arthur said quietly, "if you go into that room with him without me, we're going to have serious problems, Hazel." Was he threatening me? Over a job? The audacity of this man. "Fine," I snapped. "Wait here. I'm doing this for us, whether you appreciate it or not." When Mr. Goldberg and Natalie returned, I smiled brightly as if nothing was wrong. "I'd be happy to film today," I announced, ignoring Arthur's stunned expression. "My husband will wait in the reception area." Mr. Goldberg seemed pleased, but not surprised, like he'd known all along I'd say yes. He handed me the envelope of cash, which I quickly tucked into my purse. As Natalie led me toward the studio door, I glanced back at Arthur. "I'll see you in a couple hours. This is for our future," I said, trying to sound confident rather than defensive. The look on his face, a mixture of betrayal, anger, and something like resignation, should have stopped me. In another life, a better version of me might have turned around and left with him. But the weight of the cash in my purse and the thrill of being chosen kept me moving forward. As the door closed behind us, I heard the outer office door slam. Arthur had left. For a moment, I hesitated. Should I go after him? But then Mr. Goldberg's hand was on my shoulder, guiding me further into the studio, and I decided Arthur was just being dramatic. He'd get over it once he saw how much this would help us financially. Plus, a small, honest part of me was curious and excited about what was about to happen. I pushed down the guilt and focused on the opportunity in front of me. The filming itself was more professional than I expected. There were lights, multiple cameras, and even a small crew. Mr. Goldberg was all business now, directing me with clear instructions. I won't go into details about what exactly we filmed. Some things should stay private, even in a confession like this, but let's just say it was definitely adult content, and I was definitely the star. Throughout the shoot, I kept telling myself this was just a job. Just acting. Just a business transaction. But there were moments when I caught myself actually enjoying the attention, the novelty, the taboo nature of it all. Was that so wrong? In another life, maybe I could have been a real actress. People do way more intense scenes in Hollywood all the time, right? After about 3 hours. Longer than promised, but I wasn't complaining with that pay. We wrapped. Natalie handed me a robe and showed me to a small changing room with a shower. As the hot water washed over me, reality started to creep back in. Arthur had left. He was probably furious. But he would understand eventually, right? $8,000. That solved so many problems. When I emerged dressed and ready to go, Natalie was waiting with some paperwork. Standard release forms, she explained. I signed quickly, barely reading the documents. Mr. Goldberg thanked me warmly, mentioning they'd be in touch if they needed me for future projects. The way he said it made it clear there could be more money in this for me if I wanted it. I found myself nodding, already mentally calculating how much we could make if I did this regularly. Only when I stepped outside did I remember Arthur was supposed to be my ride home. I checked my phone, 3 missed calls from him, but no texts. I called back, but it went straight to voicemail. Great. I ended up texting Lena, who picked me up 20 minutes later, full of questions I mostly dodged. By the time I got home, it was early evening. Arthur's car was in the driveway, which was a relief. At least he hadn't completely abandoned me. But the moment I walked through the door, I knew things weren't good. He was sitting in the dark living room, an untouched beer on the coffee table in front of him. "You actually went through with it?" he said flatly. Not a question, a statement. "Yes, and we got paid really well," I replied, trying to sound upbeat as I pulled out the envelope. "Look, $8,000, just like they promised." Arthur didn't even glance at the money. "Do you have any idea what you just did to us, to our marriage?" I rolled my eyes, actually rolled them, which in retrospect probably didn't help the situation. "Don't be so dramatic. It was a job, Arthur. Acting. That's it." "Acting?" He finally looked at me, his eyes hard in a way I'd never seen before. "Is that what we're calling it? Because I'm pretty sure there's another word for being intimate with someone for money." That made me angry. Wow. Really classy way to support your wife who just did something difficult to help our financial situation. If you made enough money. "Don't," he cut me off. "Don't you dare put this on me. We were managing. It was tight, but we were making it work. This wasn't about need, Hazel. This was about you wanting more, faster, at any cost." "That's not fair," I protested, though a small voice inside me whispered he might be right. I pushed it down. "I did this for us. Why can't you see that?" "For us?" Arthur laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You didn't consult me when they changed the terms. You didn't consider how I'd feel watching my wife walk off with another man. You made a unilateral decision that impacts our marriage, our trust, our future. That's not how partnerships work." I threw my hands up in frustration. "Fine. Be mad. But when the bills are paid and we can finally breathe financially, you'll thank me." Arthur just shook his head slowly. "I'm sleeping on the couch tonight. We'll talk tomorrow when I'm less likely to say something I'll regret." As he grabbed a blanket from the closet, I stomped off to our bedroom, slamming the door behind me. Alone in our room, I pulled out the envelope and counted the money again. $8,000. Despite everything, I felt a little thrill looking at all that cash. I decided right then I wouldn't put all of it in our joint account. After all, I was the one who earned it, right? I deserved to keep some for myself. I hid 3,000 in my underwear drawer before changing for bed. As I lay there trying to sleep, I kept replaying the day in my head. Yes, things had taken an unexpected turn, but was it really as bad as Arthur was making it out to be? It was just one afternoon. Just a job. People do all kinds of things for money. Why was he being so rigid? So judgmental? It's not like I was planning to make a career of it. Though when Mr. Goldberg mentioned future projects, I didn't hate the idea. The next morning, things were tense. Arthur barely spoke to me, making his own breakfast and eating in silence while I tried various conversation starters. Finally, I put $4,000 on the table between us. For the bills, I said. I thought we could use the rest for something fun, maybe a weekend away to reconnect. Arthur stared at the money like it was contaminated. Where's the rest? My stomach dropped. What do you mean? You were paid $8,000. Where's the other $4,000? I hesitated. I thought I deserved to keep some. For myself, I earned it after all. The look of disgust on his face made me instantly defensive. Don't look at me like that. Why shouldn't I keep some? I'm the one who did the work. The work, he repeated, making air quotes. Right. He stood up, leaving his half-eaten breakfast. I have to go to actual work now. Do whatever you want with the money. That seems to be what you're good at. Doing whatever you want, regardless of how it affects us. After he left, I spent the day alternating between anger and justification. By evening, when he returned from work, I had convinced myself that I was the reasonable one in this situation. Arthur was just being controlling and prudish. We barely spoke that night, or the next. Days turned into a week, then 2, of stilted conversations and cold silences. Then, about 3 weeks after the filming, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. It was Natalie. Mr. Goldberg was very impressed with your work, she said smoothly. We have another project next week, similar to the last. The compensation would be $10,000 this time. $10,000. For one day's work. My heart raced at the thought. I'm interested, I heard myself say. But I'd need to check my schedule. What I meant was I'd need to figure out what to tell Arthur, who was still barely speaking to me about the first film. Of course, Natalie replied. Let us know by tomorrow. Mr. Goldberg specifically requested you, so we're hoping you can make it work. After we hung up, I sat there staring at my phone. I should talk to Arthur. I should tell him about the offer and discuss it. That's what a good wife would do, especially after how badly the first time had gone over. But I already knew what he'd say. He'd forbid it. He'd give me that disappointed look. He'd make me feel guilty for even considering it. So I decided not to tell him. I called Natalie back an hour later and confirmed. I would just say I was picking up an extra shift at work. Arthur never checked my schedule anyway. What he didn't know wouldn't hurt him, right? The next week, the pattern began. I'd make excuses to disappear for a day. I'd return with cash I'd hide throughout the apartment. Arthur grew increasingly suspicious, checking my phone when he thought I wasn't looking, questioning why I was suddenly working so many extra shifts, but our bank account wasn't reflecting much change. I became paranoid about my hiding spots, moving the money frequently. I deleted texts from Natalie and Mr. Goldberg. I created elaborate stories about work drama to explain my absences, all while watching my marriage deteriorate day by day. The worst part? A small, honest part of me didn't even care that much. I was enjoying the secret life, the easy money, the attention from Mr. Goldberg and his crew. I felt valued there in a way I hadn't at home recently. And the cash, there was something so satisfying about counting it, hiding it, knowing it was mine alone. Arthur and I had barely touched anymore. He stopped asking where I was going. We existed in the same space like roommates rather than spouses. I told myself it was temporary, that he'd come around, that once we were more financially stable, things would get better. But deep down, I knew something fundamental had broken between us. 4 months after that first filming, I came home from another shift to find Arthur sitting at the kitchen table, an open duffel bag at his feet. My stomach dropped instantly. What are you doing? I asked, though I already knew. I can't do this anymore, Hazel, he said quietly. Whatever this is, it's not a marriage. What are you talking about? I tried to sound confused, innocent. If this is still about that one time, stop. His voice was tired but firm. Please don't insult me by continuing to lie. I know you've been going back there. I know you've been hiding money all over the apartment. I know you've been lying about work shifts. I felt my face flush. Have you been spying on me? He laughed without humor. That's what you're concerned about, not the fact that you've been repeatedly cheating on me and lying about it? It's not cheating, I protested automatically. It's a job. It's acting. Then why lie? He asked simply. Why hide the money? Why make up stories about where you're going? If it's just a job, why all the secrecy? I had no good answer for that. Arthur sighed deeply. I'm staying with Tyler for a while. I've left divorce papers on the counter. You can read them when you're ready. Panic shot through me. Divorce? Arthur, that's extreme. We can work through this. Can we? He looked at me directly for what felt like the first time in months. Do you even want to? Because from where I'm standing, you've chosen money and whatever thrill you get from those films over our marriage at every turn. You're not even sorry, Hazel. You're just sorry you got caught. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, but the words stuck in my throat, because on some level, I knew he was right. I wasn't sorry about the films themselves. I was sorry about the consequences. What about all our history? I tried. 8 months of marriage, 3 years together before that. You're throwing it all away? No, Hazel, you did that. Every time you walked into that studio, every lie you told, every dollar you hid. He picked up his bag. I loved you. I really did, but I don't even recognize you anymore. As he headed for the door, a thought occurred to me. Wait, have you told anyone about this? About what I've been doing? The fact that this was my concern, rather than trying to save my marriage, seemed to confirm something for Arthur. Goodbye, Hazel, he said, and walked out. I stood frozen in the kitchen, listening to his car start and drive away. I should have been devastated. Instead, after the initial shock, I felt an odd sense of relief. No more lying, no more sneaking around, no more cold silences. Plus, I had nearly $30,000 hidden around the apartment. I could pay the rent myself for months. I could buy new furniture, new clothes, live the life I'd been watching my friends live on Instagram. I called Lena immediately, spinning a story about how Arthur had been controlling, and finally I'd broken free. She was sympathetic but strangely reserved. That's tough, she said. Do you need me to come over? No, I'm fine, I assured her. Actually kind of relieved, you know. He just didn't understand me. There was a pause before Lena spoke again. Hazel, what exactly have you been doing for money these past few months? Arthur mentioned something to Tyler, who told me it was adult films? Is that true? My blood ran cold. He told Tyler? What exactly did he say? Just that you'd been filming adult content behind his back after he explicitly asked you not to. Is that true, Hazel? I considered lying but was honestly tired of keeping track of all my stories. It's not as bad as it sounds. It's professional, safe, good money. Arthur was just being prudish about it. Another long pause. Okay, Lena finally said, her voice noticeably cooler. Well, let me know if you need anything. Over the next 2 weeks, I noticed a pattern. Friends were slow to respond to texts. Family calls went suspiciously short. When I reached out to make plans, people suddenly had conflicts. It became clear that Arthur had told more people than just Tyler, and word was spreading. Then came the call from my father. My stomach dropped when I saw his name on my caller ID. My parents were conservative. They'd never understand what I'd been doing. Hazel, my father said when I answered, his voice unnaturally calm. We need to talk about what's going on with you and Arthur. Dad, it's complicated, I began, prepared to give the sanitized version of events. We've grown apart and... Stop. His voice was sharp. I know what you've been doing. Arthur told your mother and me everything. My heart raced. Dad, whatever Arthur told you, it's his perspective. There are 2 sides to. I looked up the company. He cut me off. This Goldberg character. I wanted to see if there was any way to have whatever you filmed taken down, protected somehow. He took a deep breath. Instead, I found the videos, Hazel. I saw what you did. Horror washed over me. My father had seen the films. The shame I'd managed to avoid for months suddenly crashed down like a tidal wave. Dad, no. His voice cracked. I don't know who you are anymore. The daughter I raised would never... The things I saw. He couldn't even finish the sentence. Your mother can't even speak about it. We've decided it's best if you don't contact us for a while. maybe a long while. Dad, please. I begged, tears finally coming. It was just for money. It doesn't mean anything about who I am. That's where you're wrong, Hazel, he said sadly. What we do for money says everything about who we are and what we value. You sold your marriage, your self-respect, and your family's trust for cash. That tells me everything I need to know. He hung up, and I sat there in shock, tears streaming down my face. Within a month, I'd lost my husband, my friends, and now my family. But I still had the money, right? That's what mattered? Except the next week, when I contacted Natalie about another filming, she informed me they were going in a different direction. When I pressed, offering to lower my fee, she was blunt. We've gotten what we needed from you, Hazel. We're always looking for fresh talent. The dismissal stung more than I expected. Suddenly, the apartment felt too big, too quiet, too full of reminders of what I'd lost. The money, which had seemed like so much, began disappearing faster than I expected as I covered all the bills alone. Without Arthur's income, even with my hidden cash, the math wasn't working long term. I started looking for a new job, something that paid better than my current position. But in a cruel twist, I discovered potential employers were finding the videos during background checks. One interviewer actually smirked when he told me they were going with another candidate. 6 months after Arthur left, I was running out of options and money. I'd lost my apartment and moved to a smaller place. Most of my friends had drifted away completely. My parents still weren't speaking to me. The last blow came when I heard through Lena that Arthur had moved to Phoenix and was dating someone new. Someone who, according to social media, looked happy and stable and normal in all the ways I apparently wasn't. Sitting alone in my tiny new apartment, surrounded by the expensive things I'd bought to make myself feel better, I finally confronted a terrible truth. I'd destroyed everything that actually mattered for money that was already nearly gone. And the worst part? Even now I couldn't fully accept it was my fault. It was the economy's fault for making everything so expensive. It was Arthur's fault for not making enough money. It was my parents' fault for being so judgmental. It was society's fault for making such a big deal about what should be a personal choice. Everyone had abandoned me when I needed them most. Everyone had failed me. Though sometimes in the darkest hours of the night, a small voice whispers that maybe, just maybe, I was the one who failed them all.